Okay, so I want you to imagine something. You wake up, you stretch, count your ribs, everything seems normal. Except for one uh, massive glaring detail. You are supposed to be dead.
Right.
And I don't mean a near-death experience. I mean, historically, biographically, you shot yourself 5 years ago. But here you are, it's 1935, and you are, well, you're a cosmic misprint.
It's an absolute nightmare scenario. And it's the premise of the Iron Lullaby, this text we're getting into today.
Exactly. So we've got this incredible set of recovered manuscript fragments, all attributed to Vladimir Mayakovsky. Now, for anyone who might not be up on their Russian lit, Mayakovsky wasn't just some poet. He was, I mean, how would you put it, the rock star of the Russian Revolution.
That's a great way to describe him, yeah. He was the cloud in trousers. He was loud, aggressive, a futurist. He believed art should be a punch to the face.
The voice of 1917.
Absolutely. Shouting from podiums, designing propaganda, genuinely believing the revolution would birth a new kind of human.
But the history books tell us that dream crashed pretty hard for him. In our reality, Mayakovsky shot himself in the heart in April 1930. He was 36.
And that event really marked the end of an era, the end of that early, wild, artistic freedom.
But this text, this Iron Lullaby, it asks, what if he missed?
Or, as the opening fragment puts it, what if there was a clerical error in the Department of Death?
So he survives, but he's not living in the chaotic 1920s anymore. He's stuck in the mid to late 1930s.
Which is a completely different Soviet Union. This is the height of Stalinism. The Great Purge is kicking off, the bureaucracy is rigid, and that loud, roaring revolution has gone very, very quiet.
And that really brings us to fragment 4. The poet counts his ribs. The feeling isn't relief. He counts his 12 ribs and just feels wrong.
Yeah, he says his ribs are tired of holding him together. His lungs are tired of taking breaths he doesn't want.
Survival isn't a gift, it's a bureaucratic oversight.
That's the key. He calls himself a ghost who still has to pay rent.
That line, like that just says it all, doesn't it? It's such a mundane, practical kind of horror. You're existentially dead, but you still have to queue for bread.
Mm-hmm. And Mayakovsky was a man of grand gestures, rewriting the stars.
Mm.
And now he's just a man trying not to be noticed by a state that has no file for him. A line break in death's editorial policy.
Okay, so the first piece of evidence of this posthumous life is a medical report, fragment IA.
Yes, from Clinic #7 in Moscow.
Yeah.
And this is where the satire just gets razor
Well,
sharp.
they don't diagnose him with depression or trauma. They diagnose him with, get this, chronic disillusionment and revolutionary fatigue syndrome.
And my personal favorite, ideological whiplash.
Honestly, that sounds pretty contemporary, but the physical description is brutal. His heart beats reluctantly. His lungs are used mainly for sighing.
It's the medicalization of a broken spirit. But the treatment plan, that's the kicker.
Mandatory optimism, 30 milligram twice daily.
Mandatory optimism. And he's also prescribed the elimination of all pre-revolutionary poetry.
It sounds like a joke, but when you think about it, mandatory optimism, it means sadness itself is a disease, a political crime almost.
Precisely. In the 1930s, that wasn't so far from the truth. The state was trying to engineer emotion. If you were unhappy, it wasn't because of the famine or the secret police, it was because you were malfunctioning.
Which is the perfect segue to fragment 4. This thing is written like a user's manual. Operating instructions for the new Soviet man.
And we should say, the new Soviet man was a real propaganda idea, this perfect, selfless, collectivist hero.
Right. But this manual is just chilling. It describes this ideal citizen as a unit. It has 10 fingers for machinery, 1 mouth for slogans. But it's what's missing that's so scary.
No doubt, no irony, and no memory.
It actually says the unit must wake at 5 a.m. thinking of Stalin and sleep at 10 p.m. dreaming of production.
But the troubleshooting section.
Okay.
What if the unit starts writing poetry? Or, God forbid, asking why?
It's classified as a critical error, a malfunction. Yeah. But the part about love...
Yeah. Love is listed as a bug because love creates a private loyalty. A loyalty that isn't to the party. The manual says if the unit falls in love, report it for recalibration.
It's an attempt to literally engineer human nature. But Mayakovsky, in this text, he doesn't just suffer under the system, he has to participate in it. Let's talk about his job.
He works in the basement of the Lubyanka.
Let's just pause on that. The Lubyanka wasn't just any old building in Moscow.
No. It was the headquarters of the NKVD, the secret police. It was the most infamous prison in the country. People went in and they didn't come out.
And Mayakovsky is working in the basement. Doing what?
Fragment third calls it the assembly line of dreams. His job is to install dreams into workers' skulls while they sleep.
It's unbelievably surreal.
And there are quotas. Dreams must be 87% optimistic. They have to feature tractors or furnaces.
It says here that hunger has to be redirected into patriotic fervor. So if you're starving, they make you dream about grain export numbers.
It's the final frontier of propaganda. It's not enough to control the day. You have to colonize the night. Your subconscious has to toe the party line.
But Mayakovsky, he's a poet. He can't help himself. He becomes a saboteur of sleep.
Yeah, he starts slipping in these little unauthorized things.
Tiny things. The smell of rain, the sound of a father's boots, and the most dangerous thing of all, the question why.
Just a free-floating why, with no context. It's an incredible act of rebellion. He's planting a seed of critical thought, waking people up even as they're sleeping.
Of course, he gets transferred for being a liability to the Department of Forgetting.
And this memo from Fragment 11, I mean, it's satire, but it's so close to the bone it hurts. It lists things that have to be erased from public memory.
Like people who never existed.
It explicitly mentions Trotsky. He's to be replaced by a suspicious gap.
This was real, wasn't it? The airbrushing people out of photographs?
Absolutely. As Stalin purged his rivals, they vanished from the official record. And the text mentions the famine of 1932-33, rebranded as a temporary food supply adjustment.
It's about weaponizing language to control memory. But the final line of the memo is the most chilling.
If you remember reading this memo, report yourself.
Wow.
That is the perfect logic of the purge. You have to actively participate in your own gaslighting to survive. Freedom becomes understanding your place.
It's horrifying, but the text then shifts from this high-level, bureaucratic nightmare to something much more intimate. Fragment 14, Night Thoughts in the Common Apartment.
The communalka. This was the reality for millions. 17 families crammed into one subdivided apartment, one kitchen, one bathroom.
The soundscape he describes is just pure claustrophobia. It's 3 a.m. He hears the Petrovs fighting through one wall.
But he also hears the informant listening through another wall.
There was always an informant. That's what destroyed any sense of home. You were never, ever alone.
And then he hears Comrade Sidorov crying behind wall C until the crying stops.
Because of the knock.
The knock at 3:30 a.m.
That specific time, the witching hour for the NKVD. He describes hearing the boots in the hall and just freezing, praying they don't stop at your door.
And when they take Sidorov's, the text notes how, before dawn, his room is already being inventoried and reassigned, as if he never existed.
And Mayakovsky is just lying there. He mentions his only private space in this whole world.
The loose brick in his wall.
Where he hides his manuscripts.
Which brings us to the little addendum fragmenteva, the inventory of the common apartment. It lists things in the kitchen: sugar, salt, and trust, lost in 1918.
Trust, lost in 1918. That just says it all. You can't trust your neighbors. You can't even offer comfort, because that could be seen as a political act.
Exactly. So you just lie there and you're grateful it wasn't your door tonight.
So we've seen his work, his home, but you can't talk about Mayakovsky without talking about Lili Brik.
The muse, the great complicated love of his life.
And the text describes her as the revolution in miniature. Listen to this. Promising everything, delivering just enough to prevent complete despair.
Oof. That's a devastating parallel to his relationship with the state, isn't it? A cycle of hope and disappointment.
There's this one scene, Fragment XV, it's just heartbreaking. Lili is in a cafe, reading his obituary in a newspaper, and he's sitting at the next table, completely invisible to her.
The ghost metaphor becomes literal, and she seems almost relieved.
She talks to the invisible him. She says she loves loving him, but she won't be consumed by him. She says he made her a metaphor, not a person.
Which, to be fair, is a pretty sharp critique of his actual poetry. He did turn her into this cosmic symbol, but here she admits she prefers the legend. The dead poet is a neat statue. The living man is messy.
Easier to love a martyr than a man.
Absolutely. And he realizes he's just haunting her now.
This brings him to Fragment X, the arithmetic of despair. He tries to use math to make sense of it all.
Hope divided by time equals disappointment.
He calculates the intersection of promises made in 1917 and promises delivered in 1935.
And the result is a null set, 0. It's the calculation of a man who bet his soul on a future that never arrived.
Speaking of futures that never arrived, let's go to the Museum of the Revolution in Fragment the 6. He gets a tour while it's under construction.
This whole section is about how history gets written or rewritten. The museum has a diorama of the storming of the Winter Palace, but the text notes it didn't really happen that way.
And the Happy Workers exhibit is just full of actors. But Mayakovsky asks the architect the dangerous question. He asks, where do you keep the mistakes, the famine, the purges?
And the architect's answer is just perfect. There's no room for mistakes.
Yeah.
Museums are for triumph, not truth.
Triumph, not truth.
It's the mission statement of all totalitarian art. The architect admits he's building a monument of lies,
Yeah.
but he justifies it. He says he's a survivor, not a coward.
And then adds that he can't tell the difference anymore.
That's the moral cost of that era.
Mm.
To survive, you have to become complicit. You build the fake museum, or you end up like Sidorov.
This brings us to Mayakovsky himself. In 1915, he wrote A Cloud in Trousers, young, angry, thunderous. In Fragment 12, the 1935 Mayakovsky looks back at that kid.
The contrast is just stark. He says the cloud in trousers has become the mist in sensible shoes.
The mist and sensible shoes, I feel that. It's such a perfect image of diminished power.
It is. He realizes all his old demands. Down with your art. Down with your love. They were all granted. The old world was smashed. But what replaced it was so much worse.
There's this imagined letter between his 22-year-old self, who thinks words are weapons, and his 42-year-old self.
And the older one writes back, breaking the rules just makes the rules break you back.
But then comes the twist. Despite all of it, the regret, the disillusionment, the older Mayakovsky says he'd still do it. He'd still write the poems. He'd still scream.
Why? Why go through it all again?
Because, as he says, silence is worse than failure.
Yes. Even if the cause was lost, the act of testifying, of speaking his own truth, was the only thing left that was real.
Which brings us to the end. Fragment 13, the poet applies for permission to exist.
It's the ultimate bureaucratic absurdity, a form to justify his own life.
And he tries. He really tries to write the approved, loyal answers, but he can't. He ends up writing that he is not finished failing and not finished loving Lili.
It's this moment of total, profound vulnerability. He can't lie anymore, not even to save himself. The system demands total compliance, and he's just structurally incompatible with it.
So when we step back, what is this Iron Lullaby really telling us?
I think it's about the stubbornness of the human spirit to bear witness. This Mayakovsky knows he's doomed. He knows the loose brick isn't safe, but he writes it all down anyway.
Even if he has to burn the pages right after.
Exactly. The act of witnessing is the resistance. In a world of mandatory optimism, just feeling real sadness is a revolutionary act. Remembering Sidorov when you're told he never existed is a revolutionary act.
It really makes you think about how fragile truth becomes when a state decides to edit it. It's a society trying to edit out the human element itself because humans are messy.
And Mayakovsky is the messiest. He's loud, heartbroken, full of doubt. He's the glitch in the machine. And that's why this isn't just about the Soviet Union. It's about any system that tries to flatten the human experience into a slogan.
So we've come full circle. The text calls him a saboteur of sleep, the one who slips the question why into the collective dream.
A dangerous job, but a necessary one.
It is. So I guess the question we want to leave you with is this. In a world that so often demands compliance or mandatory optimism or just numbness, would you have the courage to be that saboteur? Would you be the one to ask why, even if you knew the walls were listening?
And would you keep writing your truth, even if the only place to hide it was behind a loose brick?
Something to chew on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Stay curious.
And stay human. See you next time.